24 lakhs 53,590 rupees. That's what Mr. Matthew paid for a FEMA violation most NRIs don't even know exists. FEMA violations are the hidden tax NRIs never see coming, because these laws are so poorly understood that even careful NRIs end up paying massive penalties for mistakes they didn't know they were making. So today, we'll cover the common FEMA mistakes that are costing NRIs heavy penalties, starting from 75,000 rupees, 5 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 40 lakh rupees, all the way up to 1 crore. By the end of this video, you'll know the 5 FEMA traps that catch even the most careful NRIs, the exact steps to take if you've already violated FEMA laws before it's too late, the shocking legal loopholes in FEMA penalties that no one tells you about until you're already paying the price. Welcome to NRI Shala. I'm Malvika, and this is where we navigate NRI life together, from visa guidance and investments to maintaining your roots while building your future abroad. The first story is about an NRI who had to pay rupees 75,000 in penalty. But for him, the penalty wasn't even the real problem. The real problem was he lost the flexibility to move 39 lakh rupees out of India freely just because he did something most NRIs do commonly. Here's what happened. Mr. Trehan bought equity shares in an Indian company for 39 lakh rupees, for which he paid by a check. He used his old Indian HDFC bank account, just like he always had. Nothing seemed illegal until 3 years later. He got flagged by RBI for contravening with FEMA law. FEMA clearly states that once you become an NRI, the mode of payment for NRI purchase on non-repatriation basis must be via inward remittance from abroad or out of NRE, FCNR, NRO, NRSR or NRNR funds. Using a resident savings account breached this requirement, which resulted in a penalty of rupees 75,000, and the investment lost its repatriation rights, meaning every rupee from the 39 lakh rupees investment now has to crawl through the NRO route with caps and taxes and heavy paperwork instead of moving freely abroad. What he instead should have done was convert his resident account to NRO before the payment, or route the payment via NRE if he wanted full repatriability. Another similar case happened with an NRI, and this time the penalty imposed was 5 lakh rupees. But instead of paying 5 lakhs, this NRI managed to settle the case by paying just 1 lakh rupees. To understand how he did that, let's first look at what went wrong with him. Mr. Sehon, an NRI, sold his residential property in Chandigarh for rupees 90 lakh and deposited the proceeds into a savings bank account, which was meant for resident Indians. The Directorate of Enforcement, or ED, received information regarding this transaction and initiated an investigation. The investigation revealed that Sehon had opened a savings account despite being an NRI without disclosing his residential status to the bank. A complaint was filed alleging contravention, and the adjudication authority imposed a penalty of rupees 5 lakh on Sehon. Now, before you get to know why he only paid 1 lakh rupees, it's important for you to understand how FEMA penalties work. If the violation is ongoing, where an NRI is continuously breaking a FEMA rule every single day, that will result in 5,000 rupees per day penalty. And there's no upper limit. That means if an NRI violated FEMA law for 10 years, that's 3,650 days times 5,000 rupees, that's 1.825 crore rupees. But let's say if the contravention is flagged, then there are 2 ways the case can lead into. The contravention is not quantifiable. In that case, FEMA Section 13 states the penalty is capped at up to 2 lakh rupees. Sehon's case was not quantifiable. The 5 lakh penalty wasn't calculated by a formula. The adjudicating authority just fixed a lump sum penalty while holding he'd violated Regulation 8A. On appeal, the tribunal said the violation wasn't about 90 lakh rupees. It was about using the wrong type of bank account as an NRI. Since no inward or outward remittance happened through that account, there was no money flow to measure for the penalty math, so they treated it as non-quantifiable. further looking at the case details, the tribunal took a lenient view and fixed the penalty at rupees 1 lakh. But let's say that if a case is quantifiable, then FEMA states that the penalty is 3 times the sum involved in contravention. That means if the contravention amount is 15 lakh rupees, the penalty can go up to 45 lakh rupees. But there's another way around it, and best recommended by more NRI consultants. That is compounding. This is where you go to the RBI, admit you messed up, pay a fee, and they officially forgive the violation. Think of it as FEMA's out-of-court settlement. Here's a case of an NRI whose contravening amount was 85 lakh rupees and the penalty was coming out to be more than 2.5 crores. But because he compounded, he just needed to pay rupees 1,13,000 in fees. But not everything is compounding friendly. That brings us to the next mistake that cost a penalty of 15 lakh rupees. In 2019, the ED slapped a 15 lakh rupees penalty on 3 people and confiscated 7 lakh rupees hawala money under FEMA for terror financing. Hawala is an illegal trust-based network where value moves without the money actually crossing borders through banks. It comes with serious legal consequences and is a direct violation of FEMA and PMLA. But this method isn't only used by terror groups. NRIs sometimes use hawala because it's fast, cheap, private, and sometimes gives a better exchange rate than banks. Here's how it works. An NRI in the UAE gives a hawala agent a sum of some dirham. The agent contacts a counterpart in India who then pays the recipient in rupees. The 2 agents settle their books later, often through illegal activities. On the other hand, the legal ways cost 6.49% of the amount sent, which is double than the UN target of 3%. To put this in perspective, if you are sending $1,000 home, you're losing $65 just in fees. That's 5,400 rupees vanishing into thin air. So you're either left to choose the risky way or lose thousands of rupees on every transfer. What's frustrating is even the digital remittances that cost 5% and non-digital transfers that cost 7% offer terrible experiences. That's exactly why we built Aspora, not as another remittance company, but because we were tired of explaining to our families why less money arrived than we sent. You get Google matching exchange rates, so it is no more of a guessing game. You know exactly what you will receive in India and at the lowest fees. We are now live in the US. Use code USANRI when you download the app and experience what fair, transparent remittance actually looks like. Coming to the next big violation. This NRI was penalized for rupees 41 lakhs. This is another common mistake that many NRIs make unknowingly, but unlike banking violations, this costs them way more in penalties. This is what happened. Mr. Martin, a US citizen and OCI card holder, purchased agricultural property in Tamil Nadu for rupees 13.68 lakhs without obtaining prior permission from the RBI as mandated under Regulation 8 of the FEMA. This is a direct violation. NRIs or OCIs are allowed to buy residential or commercial property in India, like apartments, flats, office spaces, or shops. But buying agricultural, plantation, or farmhouse land is restricted for NRIs and OCIs. The only way you can acquire that land as an NRI is by inheritance. In fact, you can't even receive it as a gift from parents or relatives. In Martin's case, the original penalty calculated was almost 1.5 crore rupees. That included a base penalty plus a percentage of the amount of contravention adjusted for undue gain made by the petitioner. But since it had to be capped at 300% of the amount of contravention, the final penalty imposed came out to be rupees 41 lakhs. This brings us to the last and costliest violation, 1 crore 16 lakhs 58,220 rupees. And the scary part is this can happen to any one of us if we don't take note of one little thing. But before we get into that, I'd like you to understand FEMA laws are really complex and we haven't even scratched the surface. If you get a notice or need guidance, go to a consultant who specializes in FEMA. That can be a CA, a company secretary, or an advocate who has expertise in this domain. But still, if you'd like us to make a video on everything you need to know about FEMA as an NRI, do let us know in the comments below. Now, Mr. Kumar retired from the Indian Foreign Service on 30th September 2008. While overseas, he opened FCNR-B fixed deposits. These are special bank accounts for NRIs that hold foreign currency, which is totally fine so far. But here's the problem. He returned to India in 1995, and once you do that, FEMA rules say your FCNR-B deposits must stop being treated as NRI deposits. On maturity, they should be converted to resident rupee deposits or RFC accounts. Instead of doing that, he just kept renewing the FCNR-B deposits for the next 24 years as if he was still an NRI. That's a clear FEMA violation. So this is how RBI did the math. The total amount of FCNR-B deposits were 4.53 crore rupees. Total interest earned was equal to 1.6 crore rupees. If he had followed the rules and converted the deposits, interests would have been 43.39 lakh rupees. So the extra gain was about 1.16 crore rupees. RBI invoked Section 13 of FEMA, which allows a penalty up to 3 times the amount involved, but didn't go that far. After considering the facts and undue gain, RBI decided a compounding fee of 1 crore 20 lakhs 48,086 rupees was fair. So it's important that returning NRIs must inform their bank and convert FCNR-B accounts on maturity. It's not just a formality. But other than this, there is a very crucial thing to understand here. There's no limitation period under FEMA. In other words, if someone did something against the FEMA regulations even 10 or 15 years ago, it can still come back to bite them. So basically, it's like a hanging sword. They can reopen an old violation anytime and penalize it even if it happened ages ago. So make sure you stay compliant and informed and don't get involved in practices that will come back to bite you later. This wraps it up. If you'd like to know more about sending money back home, you can check this video where we covered everything you need to know. But before that, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with your NRI friends and family members. I'll see you in the next one.